Hello, everybody, and welcome to Red Wings Daily, presented to you by FanArch. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, author of The Voices of Hockey, Broadcasters Reflect on the Fastest Game on Earth, and coming to you from the southwest corner of Washington State, 2,454 miles from Little Caesars Arena. Now, since our last show on Friday, the Red Wings had 2 games at LCA, and they won both of them. They're going to be on the road for the next 3, so they won't see any action until Wednesday, and then they have basically a two games in 2 days on the road, so it's going to be a little bit tough there. The first game is on the road in Toronto, and the very next day they got to travel over to Minnesota and take on the Wild. So no easy road there for them. And then they take on the Jets, who have kind of started to heat up a little bit. A little bit of too little, too late kind of thing. Their season's kind of scrapped, especially in that division that they play in. But you just don't want to play a team that's doing well and you're hitting them when they're hitting hot. So we'll see what happens. But going back to the 2 wins, first one was a 4-2 victory Friday night against San Jose. Luckily, the Red Wings, the 2 games they played this weekend, I think Ken Cowell mentioned it, either he did or Mickey Redmond, that they're basically playing teams who are on the second of 2 games over a 2-day period. Awesome. Awesome. And we were able to take advantage. We haven't always been able to take advantage of that situation. Sometimes we were the ones who looked a little bit too gassed, and they didn't seem as gassed, and they were able to escape with the win. One of those was Utah Mammoth a few weeks ago. But Red Wings winning 4-2 Friday night against the Sharks, playing in the second game of 2 days. Cat started off all the scoring with his 25th of the season, team lead obviously. The Red Wings fell into a 2-1 hole, but then they were able to reel off 3 straight goals, one by Comfer, one by Larkin, and one by Casper. Casper had a goal and assist in that game, and Raymond had 3 helpers in the 4-2 win Friday night. Always loving Raymond's contributions. He leads the team in points, and I love even more so is that the fact that he got a goal yesterday against Ottawa. Also scoring yesterday was the Cat with his 26th of the season. So, Larks and the Cat are both on pace for 40-goal season, which is great. Another goal from yesterday was JVR getting his 13th. I think that's fantastic because you're seeing how widespread the offense is going. I know it's really exciting. I mentioned this before, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I've said that, it's awesome when you have a 60-goal scorer. But when the distribution of the offense looks so skewed to one side because you have a 60-goal scorer, and then you have X amount of players who are doing like 10 or 12 or something like that. Having 2 40-goal scorers and possibly 2 or 3 20-goal scorers is great. I feel like it's kind of the pace that the Red Wings are at. It looks like Raymond probably will be at 20, 25 goals if he stays on this pace, and JVR will be at like 20. So you can't ask for more than that right now. And not just that, though, the rookies are contributing. They're scoring. You almost got Finney in double digits and all down the line. So I'm always excited for a deep bench to be able to pick up for when the other guys aren't really, getting it done. So talking a little bit more about yesterday's game against Ottawa, the special teams were kind of lacking. I think it went 1 for 3 on the penalty kill. So they were able to get 2 power play goals. We went 2 for 5 on the power play. So we were able to, handle our own pretty good percentage, I would say. 40% on the power play is pretty good, but 33% on the penalty kill is not. So yes, 33%. That's right. So I always say replace your divots. Kopp was the one who was in the box when the Ottawa scored their first power play goal. Kopp assisted the Cat on the overtime goal. And what a great assist that was. I am really liking what I'm seeing out of Kopp right now. He is hot lately. And him playing on that line with Kane and DeBrincat is fantastic. But the feed he gave to DeBrincat across a reaching Senator, I don't remember which Senator was in on that. If I throw a dart down a hall and say Brady Tkachuk, people are going to be like, no, it wasn't. So, but the outstretched hand and stick just could not keep up with it. The pass was perfect lead pass. Gave DeBrincat a nice opportunity for a sweet snipe, top shelf, past Ottawa's goaltender. Reimer, former Red Wing. I forgot about that. Yeah, so Reimer took the loss yesterday, and Gibby took the win. And Gibby, talking about it, he's 19-9-1. He started off the season 4-6-1. He has won 6 straight starts. He is 15-2 in his last 17. So what a great turnaround we've been seeing out of Gibson. And so, like I said, those were 2 home wins to set up the 3 road games this week. We'll talk a little bit about the matchups that are coming up in tomorrow's show. But for the time being, let's enjoy the 2 wins. We'll talk a little bit more about where we are now as compared to in the past on our last segment of today's show. But now we're going to talk a little bit elsewhere in some league laundry. So the topics of trades over the last few days have really centered around Rasmus Anderson, the defenseman for the Calgary. Well, former defenseman for Calgary, because guess who picked him up? That's right. The Vegas Golden Knights signed Rasmus Anderson to a contract. It doesn't go past this year, from what I understand. It's basically to finish the rest of this year, and then he's going to be a free agent. But looking at what the Knights gave up, basically they gave up Zach Whitecloud. He's got, in his 8 seasons with the Golden Knights, 23 goals, 55 assists. And then another player, and this is interesting when I'm reading this. This is the other player who came in with the deal, physical player, because they also got a conditional first round pick for the 2027 draft and a second round conditional pick for the 2028 draft. So that's also what the Vegas Golden Knights were giving up. And on top of that, Abram Weib, and I probably butchered that, but he's not even really on the NHL level. He's playing for the University of North Dakota. So when you look at what Rasmus Anderson, with his 261 points, his 979 blocks, and speaking money-wise for Calgary, I think it was probably beneficial. It was a mutually beneficial acquisition and trade going on here, because he was carrying a $4.55 million salary cap hit with the Flames. So, will he be a rental is the question I have. Are the Knights going to keep him after the end of this season? I will say this much. I told you guys before that I grew up in Las Vegas, so I followed the Knights when they got there. And I know that one of the big difference makers from between the 22 and 23, 22 they didn't even make the playoffs. 23 they go all the way and they win the Stanley Cup. The biggest difference, 2 players, Jack Eichel obviously, and the second was Alex Pietrangelo. The Vegas Golden Knights losing out on Alex Pietrangelo going into this season, it was a huge, huge hit. It was a huge gut punch for the Knights to go in to a season after, not only what he provides stat-wise, but the leadership and, the veteranship that Pietrangelo had, and, 2-time Stanley Cup winner. So not having that and not having that leadership in the defensive role has really hurt them. And Shea Theodore has been hurt for so long. He finally has come back, and he's, getting right back into the swing of things. So getting a solid defenseman like Rasmus Anderson, I think, is going to do wonders for the Knights, considering especially the fact that Zach Whitecloud, honestly, has never really been the top performer. He gets into it a lot. He gets into some scraps. So Calgary's going to see a scrappy little player coming in there, but definitely Vegas made out like bandits on this one, and we'll just see how that carries them and propels them. They're already in first place with a couple of games in hand over Edmonton. I think they got 4-point lead over them and 2 games in hand. So, it's a kind of a crappy division, the Pacific, but the Golden Knights are owning it, and they've won 7 in a row. So all these signs point to great expectations moving forward in this season for the Knights. Now, speaking of Ras, like I said, Rasmus Anderson, and now we're going to talk about Michael Rasmussen. I think hockey is one of those only sports where you'll find somebody like Victor Arvidsson and Arvid Victorson or something like that. Just it's tongue twisters left and right. But we went from talking about Rasmus Anderson, now we're talking about Michael Rasmussen. So 2 Rasses and 2 segments. But we're going to spotlight Rasmussen for today because I feel like I've become kind of a lucky charm, honestly. Sometimes I spotlight somebody and then they turn around and get a goal. Case in point being, I didn't mention this, but yesterday Axel scored a goal. And I think we spotlighted Axel on Friday saying he was pretty much due. And guess what? He gets a goal today. I believe he had the first goal to set it, to basically kick things off for the Red Wings in last night's game. So it's more of a superstitious kind of thing for me to sit there and think, okay, maybe Ras is gonna light the lamp next time we see him play. He's got 6 goals and he's got 14 total points. Not a bad ratio. Six goals and 8 assists. That's pretty decent. That's showing that you can score and you can also help. Sometimes players have like right now, Kane is another thing I didn't mention is the fact that Kane got an assist on Axel's goal yesterday, and that brings him 4 points within passing Madonna on the all-time list for a U.S.-born player for most points. So Kane is just chipping away at that lead. Sometimes he'll get a point, sometimes he'll get 2 points, sometimes he'll get 2 goals. Regardless, whatever he gets, he's only 4 away from basically holding the record himself. But back to Rasmussen, like I was saying, having a 6 goal and to 8 assists ain't a bad ratio to have. So here's to superstition. Here's to being the positive jinx, and we'll see if this works. And if it does, you're gonna have to start give me some credit for the mojo, I guess. All right. So I decided to give a little bit of a new segment that we might do every once in a while, especially when we're during the Olympic break and we're a little slow in between games and waiting 2 or 3 weeks for them to return to action. But I thought this would be a good time with the Red Wings having won their 30th game of the season. They're 30, 16, and 4 through 50 games. Based on last season through the 50-game mark, the Red Wings were 24, 21, and 5. Okay, so not awful, but let me put into perspective a little bit about that. So for 16 games, basically this was 16 games into McClellan becoming the coach. So before leading up to that 24, 21, and 5 record at the 50-game mark, let's basically go back to the 34-game mark. So from game 35 to game 50, the Red Wings went 11-4-1 under McClellan to get to that 24, 21, and 5. So he has been actually making a big difference. One thing that Ken Daniels said during the broadcast yesterday, talking about the Red Wings and the things that are going on with them, I did neglect to mention that they have basically set a team record for most overtime home wins in a season. That was their 7th of the season. So they are electric in overtime. 7 overtime wins at home. They've only lost 4 games in extra frames all season, but 7 wins at home in overtime, and they're still, that's already the record, and there's still however many games left to play in the season. But just looking at what Ken Daniels had mentioned in the broadcast was the fact that over the last 2 seasons, the February, March months, especially March, have not been kind to the Red Wings. And teams that, 2 seasons ago, they seemed like they were running away with it. Right after Kane got that overtime winner in Chicago, his first game back to Chicago, it looked like, they were like, we're guaranteeing we're going to the playoffs, because it just seemed that was the way it was going. But 2 seasons ago, basically they lost 8 out of 9 I think there was a 7-game losing streak. Last season, they lost 6 in a row. This was around February and March, and they went 3-11 over 14. They didn't come as close to the playoffs last season as they did 2 seasons ago. In the 23-24 season, they basically found out on the very last game of the season that they weren't making the playoffs. So they're definitely in a lot better shape than they were. The fact that they're now tied for first in the Atlantic Division and stayed tied for first in the Atlantic Division over this weekend with a team that is 12-1 in their last 13. The fact that the Red Wings are still at the top with them. Forget about the fact that there's 3 games in hand for the Lightning. Just look at the fact that the Lightning are 12-1, yet the Red Wings are still keeping up with them and still taking up some residency alongside them at the number 1 spot in the Atlantic. So I think it's been a great season so far. We can start to get into the dog days, but I will say this, I don't want to make this comparison too much because you saw what happened after the Four Nations face-off last season. They started to really lose their steam, but with the Olympic break, hopefully they were also showing another stat, and they were showing all the players, all the teams who have players representing their country and off of each roster. And there was only 3. I mentioned the other day it's going to be Larks, Sider, and Raymond representing their 3 respective countries. So you got a lot of opportunity for a lot of guys to get well rested and not be in risk of injury. I mean, granted, if any one of those 3 were to be injured, it would be a catastrophic loss for the Red Wings. So, I don't want to even put that bad energy out there. But there are teams like the Lightning. I believe the Lightning have 10 players represented on their country's teams. That's almost half your roster. That is half your roster that are not getting rested right now. So, hey, that might be something that becomes advantageous for the Red Wings going into this home stretch of the season. So we'll see how that pans out. But tomorrow we'll return with Tantrum Tuesday. Maybe have a little look at preview of Wednesday's game against it's the 4th and final game of the season against the Maple Leafs. The Red Wings are 3-0. This will be a game in Toronto, but the Maple Leafs have been pretty hot, so not taking anything for granted. But talk a little bit about that and maybe go around a little bit more of who's now back on the market, or who's left on the market now that Rasmus Anderson has been snatched up by the Vegas Golden Knights. Until then, this has been Red Wings Daily. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, LGRW from the PNW.